You don't wait to be attacked. You strike first, strike fast, strike hard. The voice of Commander Richard O'Kane carries through time like the echo of a sonar ping. Clear, confident, and unwavering. To his men, these weren't just words, they were survival. Beneath the cold Pacific waves, where sunlight dies and silence reigns, one man's mind decided the fate of dozens. This is not merely the story of a submarine captain. It's a journey into the psychology of a man who mastered fear, turned chaos into order, and carved his legend in the black depths of war. Richard Hetherington O'Kane was not born into greatness. He was born into precision. From the quiet streets of Dover, New Hampshire, he joined the Naval Academy not seeking fame, but purpose. His instructors noticed early. O'Kane didn't speak much, but when he did, every word was measured, every decision deliberate. His mind worked like a periscope, calm above the surface, focused and deadly below. When war came, he found his calling not on the open deck, but under the sea. Submarines were not for everyone. The ocean was a cruel judge. Inside the narrow steel hull of a submarine, air grows stale, nerves thin, and time stretches endlessly. You hear your own heartbeat louder than your thoughts. It takes a certain kind of man to remain composed there. O'Kane was that man. His transformation began aboard the USS Wahoo under the legendary Commander Dudley "Mush" Morton. Morton was bold, reckless even, a man of instinct and aggression. O'Kane was his executive officer, the mind behind the precision. Together they formed a deadly balance. Morton provided the spark, O'Kane provided the aim. From him, O'Kane learned that courage and calculation were not opposites. They were allies. But O'Kane added something of his own. He believed that beneath the chaos of war, the mind must always remain still. If you can control your fear, he would later say, you can control your fate. Inside the steel belly of a submarine, this philosophy became his compass. O'Kane studied not just tactics, but people. He watched how men behaved when the lights dimmed, when the air turned thin, when depth charges shook the walls like thunder. He memorized their voices, their fears, their habits. He learned that leadership wasn't shouting orders. It was building calm in others. In the silence of the Pacific, his men trusted him, not because he was loud, but because he never broke. On patrol, he operated with surgical precision. Where others saw risk, O'Kane saw rhythm. He believed every engagement was a dance. One wrong step and you vanish. But the right move, at the right second, could rewrite destiny. His commands were crisp, his decisions instant. He never hesitated. In submarine warfare, hesitation was death. He often stood by the periscope alone in the darkness, scanning the waves. His crew would later recall his stillness, the way he seemed to listen to the ocean, as if it spoke to him in its own quiet language. He had trained himself to read the sea, every ripple, every echo, every pattern of sound. This wasn't instinct, it was discipline born from obsession. When the USS Tang was commissioned, O'Kane finally had a vessel that matched his mind. She was fast, silent, and lethal. The Tang wasn't just another submarine. It was O'Kane's instrument. Every dial, every valve, every man aboard was part of his mental orchestra. He personally selected his crew, choosing those who could think under pressure and react without panic. He believed that composure was contagious, and in his presence, fear didn't last long. The Tang's first patrols were a masterclass in precision warfare. O'Kane hunted by night, attacking at point-blank range. He broke convention, surfacing closer to convoys than any captain dared. His philosophy was simple. To win, you must think like your enemy, move before they do, and never let them breathe. Under his command, the Tang sank record tonnage, striking fear across the Pacific. But O'Kane's mind was not fueled by hatred. He didn't see the enemy as men to destroy, but as patterns to outthink. His war was mental, one of angles, timing, and silence. Beneath every attack order was deep calculation. He was less a warrior and more a chess master playing in total darkness. His thoughts ran faster than his words, his instincts sharper than any periscope. What made O'Kane truly extraordinary wasn't his success. It was how he processed failure and fear. Depth charge attacks were the ultimate test of human sanity. Imagine sitting in complete darkness, hearing the metallic scream of the hull bending under pressure, the lights flickering, the gauges trembling. For most men, that sound meant panic. For O'Kane, it meant information. Each explosion, each echo was a clue. He would calmly calculate their pattern, predict their rhythm, and whisper adjustments. "Steady," he'd say softly, as if commanding the ocean itself. Inside his mind, fear wasn't an emotion. It was a tool. He understood it, respected it, and used it to heighten his senses. His crew said that even in the worst moments, his voice never rose above a whisper. He didn't need to yell to be obeyed. His presence was enough. Leadership under the sea is unlike any other. You can't inspire men with speeches when they're 20 fathoms deep, gasping in recycled air. You inspire them with control. O'Kane mastered the psychology of command. He rewarded silence, precision, and faith in one another. The Tang wasn't just a crew. It was a single organism, each man trusting that O'Kane's mind was their safety. But no mind, no matter how disciplined, escapes fate. October 24th, 1944, the Tang's final patrol. The night was calm, the seas quiet, and the crew ready for another kill. They had already achieved more victories than any other submarine. Then came the final shot. A routine torpedo launch that would change everything. The weapon malfunctioned, circled back, and struck the Tang's own stern. The explosion ripped through the submarine, sending shockwaves through the hull. Lights went out, compartments flooded, screams filled the dark. Yet even in that instant, O'Kane didn't break. Survivors later recalled his voice, calm, firm, commanding evacuation procedures as the submarine sank beneath the surface. He refused to surrender to panic, even as water filled the control room. When O'Kane was thrown into the sea, he surfaced among burning oil and wreckage. He saw his ship vanish below, the very creation that mirrored his mind now consumed by his own weapon. Fate had turned on him in one cruel, silent twist. Captured and imprisoned, O'Kane endured months of isolation and hunger. But his mental discipline never wavered. He analyzed his failures, replayed every detail, and learned from them. To him, even defeat was data, a lesson in humility, patience, and perspective. After the war, he returned not as a broken man, but as a teacher. He poured his experience into his memoirs, helping train the next generation of submariners. His book, Clear the Bridge, isn't just a record of battles. It's a study of the human mind under extreme pressure. He wrote not about glory, but about balance. The balance between aggression and caution, instinct and intellect, life and death. In his words, courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. For O'Kane, mastery was everything. It was mental discipline, forged in silence and tested in chaos. To understand Dick O'Kane is to understand the psychology of control. He believed that victory begins in the mind, long before the first torpedo is fired. His calmness was his weapon, his intellect his armor. He once said, "If you can keep your head while the world collapses, you'll win." And he lived by that until his final breath. Today, every submarine officer who steps into a control room owes something to O'Kane. His methods of attack are still studied, his leadership style still taught. But beyond tactics, his legacy lies deeper, in the quiet art of composure. He showed that the mind, when disciplined, can overcome darkness, pressure, and fear itself. In the silence of the deep, where light fades and sound becomes thought, Dick O'Kane redefined what it means to command. He was more than a hero. He was a master of the unseen war within the mind. The sea remembers his name, not through echoes of battle, but through the stillness he left behind. You strike fast, strike close, and vanish before they can breathe. That was his creed, his rhythm, his legacy. And long after the ocean swallowed his ship, the echo of his mind remains, steady, fearless, eternal.